Alright, so for the stencil box, you're going to roll out a slab just like you've done all year long. Set my example out of the way. You got to make sure that it's big enough to fit the stencil. So if you roll it out, you don't need to ask me, Smith, is this big enough? Just put the stencil on there, and if it fits on there, even if it's like really close to the edge, that's fine. And you want to make sure that you save yourself some time and space. So you want to put it all the way to the edge. One, it makes your cutting easier. Two, you'll have some extra clay in order to make the lid for this. So as usual, I'm going to hold the stencil really firmly against it, and I don't hold the needle tool straight up and down, you guys already know. Tilt it at an angle so it cuts nice and clean. And you're going to roll this slab to a 1/4 inch. How do you know when it's a 1/4 inch? One paint stick, exactly. So roll it down to 2 first just to make sure it's nice and clean. And then 1 paint stick will be a 1/4 inch. And again, the only issue I ever see with this is people they don't hold the stencil down firm enough, or they don't hold close enough to the edge, and they move it, and they have to do the slab over again. Most oftentimes it can just be cleaned up. So save these extra pieces because you'll need it for coils on the inside corners. And then the bottom, this one's not going to be big enough, but you want to save an extra piece. I can re-roll that out if I needed to. At this point I would let this dry a little bit, because right now when I try to fold up these edges, it's just going to sag back down, and even if I got them to stick, if I score and slip them, it's just going to sag down like some of yours did on the slab mug, so just keep that in mind. So I have one that's already a little bit dry. Made this one yesterday. So this one's a little bit more dry. Now I'm going to teach you what's called beveling, and I'm not going to do every single corner for you because you don't want to sit and watch that entire thing. But beveling, a lot of people get really fancy with beveling, and what it is they're just cutting off an edge right there. And the reason for that is because you're going to have 2 blocks, 2 squares, and they're going to fit together, and it's going to have an opening at the end. When you bevel, it's going to make it sit nice and flush. So I'm not going to bevel with the needle tool. I've found over the years doing this, it works just as well just to use the serrated rib and just shave off that corner. Just like so. So you don't have to be so precise. Get a little slip in there. Okay, then I'm going to fold this up, and keep in mind it has dried a little bit. So I'm going to press those together with 2 fingers and just kind of press that seam together. And then I just take a finger real quick and go over the edge there. Later I can clean this up a little better, but I'm going to put a coil inside first. The coil makes it stronger. Obviously you're adding more clay, so it's going to be a little thicker. Just kind of, I'll give you a couple of non-examples as far as like making a coil too big or making it too small. Like putting a coil this size in there obviously is going to be bulky. It's probably going to take a lot longer to dry. So I want a smaller coil, about the size of a pencil, maybe a little thicker than your needle tool. And this is 10% of the grade on this project, because I really want you guys to put these coils in there. It keeps the seam from splitting, just makes it stronger overall. And these will need to be in every corner. So the way I score it too is I'll take the needle tool and just kind of wiggle it across. Then I'll take my serrated rib and go across there. Get a little slip in there. You're going to blend it so you don't need to put too much slip. But I'm going to put the point of this coil down in the very bottom. I'm going to set it down in there. Then I'm going to hold the back corner here to support it, and I'm just going to inch my way up as I go up, and that coil is actually going to get longer. You really got to support the corners, and these little gaps that you see back here, little chunks, just take your coil and slide it back just like that, and it gives you a nice clean corner. And I always take my hands at the end and just kind of go like this up the sides. Sometimes I'll take a smooth rib or the back side of a serrated rib. If you want really sharp corners, it depends on what you're making. Okay. Then I would wait until it gets a lot more firm, like closer to leather hard, to really blend these coils, but right now I can just kind of smash it down. Then you'll get to a box like this. Okay, I've got my coils in there already. I just need to blend them a little bit. I'd use my modeling tool. Let me grab one. So inside, these need to be blended really well, and it's easy to tell when you're grading these or you're critiquing someone else's work if they're in there, because you see a really sharp corner and it just kind of comes to a point if they didn't put a coil in there. And it doesn't take that long, and it makes it a whole lot stronger. So I'm just taking the modeling tool inside and just blending the side of the coil. And then I just take a finger inside, smooth that out. Okay, then we have our box. Now we need a lid. So I'm going to take the excess clay from my slab. Hopefully you have enough extra. If not, just take the extra. Like this piece wasn't wide enough for me, so I would roll that out into a 1/4 inch thick again. Then you got to make sure that the top is level. If it's sort of level, it can work really well. If it's not level, like mine's fairly well level, if it's not, just take an X-Acto blade or a needle tool, and you'll just kind of draw a line around the outside, make it nice and level. Maybe take a cutting wire straight through it so it's nice and level. Then I'm going to flip it over, just like you made the bottom of your slab mug. And I'm going to trace around the outside. It's okay if you get a little extra on the outside, that's fine. Because you can use that to blend the clay in. It's just if you get a little too deep underneath that you got to watch out for, because then you're going to have to do some patchwork with extra clay, which is not a big deal either. So this is the part that a lot of my students get confused on. Is they think, okay, I have a lid on there, I'm done. You're going to blend this whole thing on. So I'm going to score and slip this on. And later I'll cut it with the X-Acto blade, because you want to get creative with it. Plus you don't want to, not everybody's is going to sit the same way. So when it comes to creativity points on this one, everyone's making the same box from the same stencil. Helps if I score both sides. So on creativity points, if you're the only one who did whatever it is you did, you'll get those 5 points. If yours looks like everybody else's, then you'll only be able to get half of the creativity points, and that's if it's really creative. Okay, so now we're scored and slipped. I'm just going to take some time to blend. I usually use a serrated rib because it carries more clay over. See that little excess? It just blends right into it, so it's not a big deal. So now I'm going to take the backside, or if you have a smooth rib, just smooth that out, make it nice and level. Okay, now would be the time for getting creative with it. Your box can sit any way you want. It doesn't have to sit this way. This could be the bottom. This could be the top. You can shape it any way you'd like. Just get that a little cleaner. I'm going to do one that's kind of vertical, just to kind of give you an example. Just patting down the corner. Then I'll make something like this. Like what I get a lot is fish. Little fish that swims this direction. So his fins would come off of here, his tail back here, and then it would have the little top fin. I don't know if it's called a dorsal fin or not on a fish, but the top fin would be the handle to the lid, and then the lid I would cut really creative. And you got to do little notches and things so that way you know exactly where it sits. So I wouldn't just do a straight line for my lid. I would, and again, I can't emphasize enough on waiting until it's leather hard to cut the lid. If you wait till it's bone dry, it's going to be impossible. It's going to chip. If you do it while it's wet, it's going to sag and it's just not going to fit right. And even after you cut your lid, just leave it. Just make sure you cut all the way through, all the way nice and deep with an X-Acto blade like this. Okay, so just put your student ID in the drawer. You can borrow one of these. Cut it nicely so that it fits to whatever you're making. So I've had students make this into a purse, like a little clutch looking thing, fish, a dragon. So just kind of think of what it is that you want to make out of it.